Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. It's text 30. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our means of conquest, we should first offer our respects to Narayan, personality of Godhead, to Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshu abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyutama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes of Srimad Bhagavatam, or by rendering service to pure devotee, all that is inauspicious to the heart becomes destroyed almost to nil. Thus loving service to the personality of Godhead comes into being as an irrevocable fact. Apamita, aparimita, Dhruvas, Tanobito, Yada, Yari, Sarvagatas, Tari, Na, Shasyate, Niyamo, Drava, Netarata, Ajani, Cha, Yanmayam, Tad, Abhimaya, Abhimucha, Nirantri, Bhavet, Samam, Anujana Tamam, Yat, Amalam, Mata, Dushtataya, Aparimita Duvastanu Britom, Yadi Sarvagatis, Tadina Shasyateti Niyamo Dharma Hirantaranta. Ajani cha yanmayam tad abhimucha nirantri bhavet. Okay, some others. Nitani cha yanmayam tad avimucha nirantri bhaved. Ladies, they're absorbed. Aparimitaha, countless. Dhruvaha, permanent. Tanubrita, the embodied living entities. Yadi, if. Sarvagata, omnipresent. Tari, then. Na, not. Shashyata, sovereignty. Iti, such. Niyamali, rule. Dhruva, O unchanging one. Na, not. Yatarata, otherwise. Ajani, was generated. Cha, and. Huh? Huh? I lost it. Huh? Huh? Yatmayam, from whose substance? Tat, from that. Avimucha, not separating itself. Niyatri, regulator. Bhavat, must be. Samam, equally present. Anud janatam, of those who supposedly know. Yat, which. Amalam, is it amalam or amatam? Amatam, misunderstood. Mata, of what is known. Dushtataya, because of the imperfection. Translation. If the countless living entities were all pervading and possessed forms that never changed, you could not possibly be their absolute ruler, O immutable one. But since they are your localized expansions and their forms are subject to change, you do control them. Indeed, that which supplies the ingredients for the generation of something is necessarily its controller, because a product never exists apart from its ingredient cause. It is simply illusion for someone to think that he knows the Supreme Lord, who is equally present in each of his expansions, since whatever knowledge one gains by material means must be imperfect. Purport by the disciples of Srila Prabhupada. Because the conditioned soul cannot directly understand the Supreme, the Vedas commonly refer to that supreme truth in such impersonal terms as Brahman, Om, Tat Sat. If an ordinary scholar presumes to know the confidential meaning of these symbolic references, he should be rejected as an impostor. In the words of Sri Kana Upanishad, I'm coming. Yadi manyase sabedeti dabram evapi nunam tam beta brahmano rupam yadasya tvam yad asya deveshu. If you think you know Brahman well, then your knowledge is very meager. If you think you can identify Brahman's form from among the demigods, indeed you know but little. And again, yasya matam tasya matam matam yasya navedasa avigyatam viganatam vigyatam aviganatam. Whoever denies having any opinion of his own about the supreme truth is correct in his opinion, whereas one who has his own opinion about the supreme does not know him. He is unknown to those who claim to know him, and can only be known by those who do not claim to know him. Kenu Upanishad 2:3. Acharya Sridhar Swami gives the following explanation of the verse. Many philosophers have studied the mysteries of the form, mysteries of life from various perspectives, and have formed widely differing theories. The Advaita Mayavadis, for example, propose that there's only one living being and one power of illusion that covers him, producing the appearance of plurality. But this hypothesis leads to the absurd conclusion that when any one living being becomes liberated, everyone becomes liberated, everyone obtains liberation. If, on the other hand, there are many avidyas to cover the one living being, each avidya will cover only some part of him, and we would have to talk about his becoming partly liberated at particular times, while the other parts remain in bondage. This is also obviously absurd. Thus, the plurality of living beings is an unavoidable conclusion. Furthermore, there are other theoreticians, namely the proponents of the Nyaya and Vaisheshika, who claim that the jiva is infinite in size. If souls were infinitesimal, these scholars argue, they would not pervade their own bodies, whereas if they were of medium size, they would be divisible into parts and thus could not be eternal. At least according to the axioms of the Nyaya Vaisheshika metaphysics. But if the numerous eternal jiva souls are each infinitely large, how could they be covered by any power of bondage, whether belonging to avidya or the Supreme Lord himself? According to this theory, there can be no illusion for the soul, no limitations from which to be liberated. The infinite souls must eternally remain as they are without change. This would mean that the souls would all be equal to God, since he would have no scope for controlling these all-pervading, unchanging rivals. The Vedic Shruti mantras, which affirm unequivocally that the mastery of the Lord over the infinite souls cannot be value contradicted. A true philosopher must accept the pastimes of Shruti as reliable authority on all matters they touch. Certainly the numerous places in Vedic literatures contrast the Supreme Lord's perpetual unchanging oneness, but the ever-changing embodiments of living beings, caught up in the cycle of birth and death. Srila Sridhar Swami prays, Antar Yanta Sarva Lokasya Gita Shrutya Yukta Chaivam Eva Visheya Ya Sarvagya Sarva Shakti Nisingha Shimantam Tam Chetasai Valambo. In my heart, I take shelter of He who is glorified as the inner controller of all the worlds, and from the Vedas, and whom the Vedas ascertain in truth through logical discussion, reasoning. He is Nisringa, the omniscient and omnipotent Lord of the Goddess of Fortune. Wow. Om Gana Timirandasya Ganagana Shalakaya Chakshura Militanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Desa Tarini Vancha Kalpa Charubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanev. Jai. So, welcome. This Mayavadi philosophy is so confusing, and therefore people, they get so bewildered by it, and then they think it must be really wonderful. One of the very famous Mayavadis here in India, I don't know if he's still living, he said, I make a feast that no one can digest. In other words, I speak so many words, and very big words, and it doesn't make any sense to anybody. So they think it must be so great, it's so beyond my intelligence. But even Einstein said, if you can't express something in a simply, then you don't understand it. Like one of our so-called scientists, he was promoting something, and devotees asked him, can you put it in simple terms? No. It can, that the scientist, someone says, well, this doesn't make sense. So that's because you don't have a PhD in, not a PhD, but a beyond study in mathematics, and then you can understand zero. That it's not nothing, it's something. So that and then here when they're saying what the Mayavadis think, and then it's being demolished. Madhvacharya, he had that book, 108 Refutations of Mayavadi. Anybody ever seen that? It's available online. So he actually states exactly what the Mayavadis say, and then, annihilates it. 108. Jayapataka Maharaj, years ago, they produced a book, 108 Refutations of Ritvik. It's very similar, actually, but so the point is, you can't have your own opinion, and I think it's like this, I think God is like that. You have to learn from Scripture. And even Scripture has to be learned in disciplic succession, coming down. Otherwise, we just, we see like you can find some kind of scripture anywhere to prove anything. So like Mahabharata, it's a wonderful book, but even Madhvacharya said you can't know what is the original. It's been handed down and it gets changed. Bhagavatam somehow or other never got changed in the Bhagavad-gita. So if we read something in Mahabharata that is different than the same pastime or in the Bhagavatam, we go by the Bhagavatam. Prabhupada is our founder acharya. That's a very serious, term that Prabhupada stressed so strongly. Founder acharya, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. He wanted it everywhere. Whenever his name was published, and outside every temple, and on all the letterhead, and all the books, and everywhere. He's the founder acharya. He gave us a foundation. Everything has to go along with that. So if somebody finds another acharya that in their opinion is different, I've even heard devotees that are claiming to be members of ISKCON saying, well, Prabhupada, for some kind of preaching strategy, he's speaking up a sampradaya, because they don't know what the sampradaya says. They don't understand either. Everything can be, interpreted in so many ways. Like when Lord Chaitanya explained the Atmarama verse, the first thing he did was take each word and give the dictionary meaning. And of course, some words have 8 different definitions. You can look in an English dictionary, I suppose Hindi, same. Many words, they have meanings that are opposite. And then someone has to understand like which meaning they meant, language. Everything is open to different interpretation. Even doctors, different doctors look at all the score sheet and they'll come up with different ideas. Astrologers, they look at the same chart and give you completely different. So we always have to go back to Prabhupada. Prabhupada gave us everything. And if something sounds different, but Prabhupada could explain it's not really different because he really understands it. But everything, Lord Chaitanya, he perfected all the understanding with this Achintya Veda Veda Tattva, which is all pervasive. Bhagavad-gita chapter 9, we have this, Maya tatam idam sarvam jagadavyakta murtina matstani sarva bhutani nachaham deshavastata. I'm within and without, and everything is resting on me, but I'm not in, I'm in and I'm out, and there's a whole bunch of verses that are the Achintya Veda Veda Tattva slokas. But throughout the Bhagavad Gita, you find the same kinds of things. Something is and it isn't. Krishna is and he isn't. Krishna is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, but you can also say Vishnu is, because Vishnu is Krishna. But ultimately, it's Krishna. Like here, we have this Mahavishnu. Vishnur Mahan Sahiyasya Kalavishesho. Even the Mahavishnu, which I think most people that know a little bit, Hindu or Indian philosophy, they really don't know Mahavishnu. They know Garbhodakasha, right? The Vishnu within this universe, with Brahma coming out of the navel. The Mahavishnu with all the universes coming out of his pores, and that's not like so well known. But he's a Kalavishesha. He's a portion of Krishna. Krishna is so far beyond all this. So that way we can only get some kind of a hint of what is Krishna. We've been reading in one class, the 5th chapter of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the glories of Lord Nityananda. So for a long time, hundreds of verses, hardly mentions Lord Nityananda. And just talking about all these Vishnus and expansions. But that's Lord Nityananda. He's Balaram. But from Balaram is coming all these things. But Nityananda is actually Balaram. Balaram is so powerful that he can make his club much bigger and dig up the whole city of Hastinapur, which was a Delhi, it's quite a big city, and drag it, into the Ganga. And they were so puffed up, they were insulting him because he was saying, just give him back and we won't bother you. Aha, what do we care what you say? The Yadus are nobody. They're all empowered by us and blah, 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 blah. First they greeted Balarama very nicely, thinking that he would give them something, I guess. But then he asked for something. But then he just started dragging the whole city, and it was like an earthquake. And they panicked. But he's so powerful. And that's Lord Nityananda. But what is he doing? He's going door to door and begging people, please chant Hare Krishna. Right? He could have destroyed the entire Navadvip, could have done anything. But he came as a humble servant of Lord Chaitanya and actually a humble servant of everybody. So, chant Krishna, worship Krishna, and teach Krishna or learn Krishna. So this is what we're trying to follow. This chapter it's worth studying very carefully, but if we tried to go over even this purport, it would take a few hours to go over each one. But the point, at least that I picked up, was, you can't have your own opinion. What is Krishna? The Mayavadis have that. If you look on the interviews with about Srila Prabhupada, when our Srinathji Prabhu, he was telling his story. He was a disciple of Super Mayavadi, the main guy. I won't mention the name, I don't know. And he had become personally very degraded in America, studying in the university there. And he came home one day and his mother said, we're having guests, and, it was at Hare Krishna's. And he thought, why is my mother at these crazy people? And he had a sign on his office, no Hare Krishna. And somehow Giriraj Swami, he sat down outside the office and waited for him to come out. So then he, naturally, because he's sannyasi, and he talked to him and he said something like, I'm a sannyasi, I'm supposed to have a bath 3 times a day. Could I go to your house? So he took him. Anyway, when he met Prabhupada, he would present what he'd heard from this Mayavadi, and Prabhupada would annihilate it. So then he would go back and tell him what Prabhupada said, and then he would give more Mayavadi stuff. And it went on for a long time. But he was seeing how Prabhupada had no material desires, was so pure, and that Prabhupada was completely unshaken by all these totally bewildering talk, these Mayavadis. So everyone will just become, okay, yeah, that must be true, I'm sure all of you have heard your whole life, So we're very fortunate that Prabhupada has, given us the simple way to understand these things. I think finally, because he was saying he was God, people were believing he's God. So Prabhupada said, Krishna lifted Govardhan Hill on one finger. Can he lift that table? Then he said, no. And then Prabhupada invited him to come for person-to-person, debate. He declined. Mayavadis are very much afraid of Prabhupada. Bhaktisiddhanta also. If they saw him, they'd run to the other direction. Nobody dared to want to, discuss with him because he could defeat anybody. So we're very fortunate, and we have to hear this and preach the facts, the simple truth, simple for the simple and complex for the complex. Krishna's the origin of everything, and Krishna's a person, the supreme person. We're part and parcel, but we're also persons. It's not all one. We're not all the same. This was Madhvacharya's main philosophy. First one was the Supreme Lord and the Atma are different. I was saying the other day how this guy in Germany, first he asked me what's the difference between the soul and the super soul. So I did my best to try to explain it. Everyone else was going, yeah. And then he said, can the soul become the super soul? And he just couldn't go beyond that. So that's how powerful this bewildering is. It just snarls up their thinking process. But we're individuals, and then amongst the Atmas, there's so many different species of life, of bodies, and they're all different. And then within even the same species, right? We go to the beach, we saw one dog, he was like huge, and then there was another one about this big, And they're both dogs. They have completely dog habits, but they're not the same. We're all different. We're all individuals. Not the Mayavadis will say, well, the souls are all the same, and the variety is only the body. But no, why there's variety of the body? Because we have the soul is individual. Well, Prabhupada, in the very beginning time when he was staying with Dr. Mishra, they were friends, but Dr. Mishra was Mayavadi. So Prabhupada didn't normally discuss philosophy with him. He cooked for him. So at one of his yoga meetings, Prabhupada would chant, and everyone really liked Prabhupada's chanting. He let Prabhupada speak. So Prabhupada spoke very strongly. You can find it, on wherever they're all recordings are. He spoke on that verse, never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, and never in the future will there ever be a time when we do not exist. Meaning, and then he was so powerful that we're all individuals and everyone's different, and like really hammering, So then Dr. Mishra said, Swamiji, I think you don't need to speak, you can just sing. But one or two people from the group got interested in Prabhupada, so they would come to visit him, and then they started doing some service, and then gradually Prabhupada was able to function on his own. Dr. Mishra had a very nice house right next to the park, and Prabhupada stayed there for a little while. But then he gave Prabhupada a room in his yoga studio. It was just a very small room with no bathroom and no window even. And Prabhupada had to walk in New York City. The winter in New York City is inconceivable. You never know what, even you can look at the weather report, but you never know it's going to be different 2 hours later, or an hour later, or 10 minutes later. It can be very, very cold, raining, then become a little bit nice. And probably had to walk pretty far every day just to take a bath. But then he would cook for Dr. Mishra. But gradually Prabhupada was preaching, he got a little money, and he was able to get another room in the same building. But it's quite nice. It was in the corner, and it had 2 windows and a bathroom. But that was in Manhattan. I think things went wrong there, robbed or something, and then he was staying with people that were a little bit favorable, and that always something was going wrong. I think twice he got everything stolen. Finally, he got that 22nd Avenue and an apartment, and from then on, things started to happen. But that first year was, Prabhupada said many days he didn't have food. His diary, today's donations, 25 cents, expenses, 30 cents for cauliflower or something. But he just absorbed himself in writing letters, inviting people to take the books, and going to bookstores, to selling the books, and also going and picking up the books after he would put them in and they didn't pay. And then if somebody bought it, he would have to go and collect the money. But many times it said, such and such bookstore told me to come and take the books back because nobody bought them. Nobody ever heard of Srimad Bhagavatam. And it wasn't like a beautifully colorful cover like other books are. And so they weren't selling very. Even after Prabhupada's departure, devotees went to all the bookstores in New York and they found quite a few copies and still hadn't sold. But by that time, Bhagavatam was selling profusely, and that's because of the devotees' enthusiasm. There's one little clip from Gopal Krishna Goswami, how to sell books. So he tells how he had arranged in some big bookshop in Bombay a very big display of all Prabhupada's books, very prominent thing. And then he told Prabhupada after 1 or 2 weeks that nobody bought the books. And Prabhupada said, yes, our books are sold by the enthusiasm of the devotees. And in the bookshop, there's no enthusiasm. They're just sitting there, and someone sees it, doesn't look very interesting. Even though that artwork cover is very, very beautiful, but you have to look really closely, and it's confusing, When the devotees repainted that painting, then it's much brighter and more people more likely to be attracted. But, showing the Goloka and then all the Vaikuntha planets and all the Avatar, all the Vishnus. And so we have this, we're all different, and we have to learn unity and diversity, how to get along with everybody, and how to get along with other so-called religious people that have different philosophies, to find the unifying points. Like Anuttama Prabhu, he deals with these deprogrammers and anti-cult. So, but within that group, you can always find somebody that's nice, somebody that agrees with you for the most part, and make friends with them and then move on. Not just hate them because, they don't understand who you are. So, and amongst the devotees, we want to be unified so that we can take over the world. It was predicted to take over the world. And if we're all unified, if we're all working under the shelter of Krishna and the disciplic succession, the disciplic succession is, I remember one devotee was sending a lot of stuff. Prabhupada was upper sampradaya about something, and it was so painful I had to quit reading it, Finally, some devotees, I don't know if he changed his idea, but he doesn't talk about it anymore because you can't last in ISKCON. But Prabhupada is the sampradaya. Look at the results. You judge by the results. So, Bhagavad-gita as a tarupa. Krishna says, Manmana bhava madbhakto. Think of me and become my devotee. But all these other Bhagavad-gitas, no one ever become a devotee. Many of these Mayavadis, they have their Bhagavad-gita, but they don't see Krishna somehow or other. Even though everybody knows it's Krishna speaking, Vyasadeva never said Krishna uvacha, always Bhagavan uvacha. But everybody knows it's Krishna, so he's trying to tell you Krishna is Bhagavan. Arjuna said, oh, Krishna sometimes. So it's Krishna. But they don't see Krishna. It's not Krishna. It's something else far beyond. I heard one of the most popular Mayavadis nowadays, they all say the same thing, but he said, he was supposedly speaking on chapter 9 of the Bhagavad-gita. Then he said, I guess it was the verse offered to me anyway. He said, it's not Krishna, it's the spirit beyond. And then he said, and you're all spirit. And the whole crowd was, yeah. In other words, you're all God. So he's very popular. We're paying just for a few days seminar where they just talk about anything and everything. They get big followings, because people get so confused. They want to be an illusion. Now we have museums of illusion. Magicians are no longer called magicians, they're called illusionists. They create illusion. They make you think that this building is not there, and all of a sudden the people go, yeah, it's gone. They don't see it because they know how to manipulate the mind. The building is there. They haven't magically actually removed the building. They just removed our ability to see it. So Krishna is the supreme Yogeshwar, the supreme magician. So he removes their ability to see him. Even they read the Bhagavad-gita, they can't see Krishna. They just see whatever they want to see. Prabhupada said, why do they call it Bhagavad-gita? They should call it Swami so-and-so Gita, because they don't say what Krishna says. But because Krishna is popular and Bhagavad-gita is famous, they called their book Bhagavad-gita. One devotee that he got he has a PhD. His master's thesis was the Bhagavad-gita. I was in his house, so he had so many different Bhagavad-gitas. And he was telling me the things that they say, and it was really shocking. Well, actually, it's 3 different people. They analyze the Sanskrit. It's not one person speaking, it's 3 different people, and on with madness. So he's his thesis was published, and he's doing a very good job of showing the real meaning of Bhagavad Gita and in a way that everyone can understand, not just scholars. And Prabhupada could speak in such a simple way, but even the greatest Sanskrit scholars would say this is wonderful. This is amazing. He also, a 10-year-old child, I've seen, even younger, even 6, 8 years old, they can preach Bhagavad Gita. They can read it, and they can preach it. They can read the Krishna book, the Srimad 10th Canto, And they don't have a problem with it. Neither does the big Sanskrit scholar, because it's Krishna. So Krishna reveals himself according to, whoever is reading. So I've got a few minutes if anybody wants to try to explain the Mayavadi philosophy. We don't generally read it because it's very toxic. Lord Chaitanya said, Mayavadi aparada hoy. Their business just to make offense. So when Lord Chaitanya took the form of Varaha, he was preaching to Murari Gupta, and he said, there's this one Mayavadi in Benares, and he says, I don't have hands, and the Vedas are condemned because they say I don't have hands or legs or eyes or ears. He said that Mayavadi scholar, he got leprosy, because he couldn't accept God as a person. So we're all persons. We can't expect. One devotee was complaining to Prabhupada how the devotees are not all perfectly cooperating or something. And Prabhupada said, that's Mayavadi. You want everyone to be the same, That's not our philosophy. Everyone is different. So you have to, we have to be sensitive to, if we're going for Sankirtan, everybody's different. So we don't just bang it on everything. This devotee Mahotsaha, the day he distributed 5,000 books, he was being interviewed. He's quite amazing person, and he's very scholarly. But when he distributes books, and someone asked him, what do you say to people? What did you say? He said, I don't know. He just, oh, great to see you, come on, when you really want this is great, take it. And somehow they do, He himself said, I don't know what happened. Everybody's coming, everybody's just giving so much money. So, because Krishna's doing it. So any comment or question? Sometimes we get some.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you very much. Once Srila Prabhupada says in one lecture in Queen Kunti's prayers, Prabhupada says, atom bomb is waiting for these Mayavadis. And then Srila Prabhupada says, these Mayavadis are more dangerous than these demons and the scientists because their philosophy is so contaminated. So he said never to associate with Mayavadis. A Vaishnava never wants to associate with a Mayavadi.
Sure. Maya. They see only Maya. Huh? Yeah. I can.
In Bhagavad-gita, Prabhupada said this as it is. Whatever Bhagavad-gita, it is whatever Lord spoken. And others, whatever they write, they use this Bhagavan and they propose their understanding and their philosophy. Right? So that is not...
I'm not catching. Here's a quote.
You said that people, they say Bhagavad-gita, they
Yeah.
use
Yeah.
Krishna is popular,
Yeah,
and they misuse it.
yeah.
So in my case, I'm conditioned soul. So I also have these tendencies. I read Bhagavad Gita. I say you cannot understand Prabhupada's purpose. Also, you have to understand through me. I say I can quote. So this is what Prabhupada wanted to tell you. Can he is instructing like I can use his authority, Prabhupada authority, Bhagavad Gita authority, and I can promote. So how can I save from this situation?
I don't know. So the Bhaktivedanta purports are very important. Now, we have seen thousands and thousands of people all over the world who never heard of Krishna, never even had any idea of any kind of philosophy. Just by reading Prabhupada's Bhagavad-gita, becoming devotees. I mean, really practicing devotees, even without meeting other devotees. Still, we repeat and we try to explain, but we have to, what we're doing is trying to encourage people to read Prabhupada's books, chant Hare Krishna. Sometimes I wonder, why am I speaking? We're just telling people to read Prabhupada's books and chant Hare Krishna. They say, no, we need to hear. But Prabhupada's purports are, and he himself, Krishna book especially, he said how he put the purports in there in such a way that nobody knows it's a purport. It seems like it's all just stories. Sometimes like you hear Lord Brahma saying it in the Bhagavad-gita, says something, but that book was especially empowered because he was giving the 10th canto back when no one even heard of Krishna practice. It was the first time anybody was really even knowing about in the Western world of Krishna. But he managed to put all the, because he's fully realized within his narration, he managed to put all the realizations of all the first 9 cantos so that anybody from any type of background, he said anyone who reads the Krishna book will become a devotee. So anyway, it's a miracle, but we have to be careful. Sometimes fanatic disciples, oh, you can't understand Prabhupada's books, you have to read my guru's books first. It's okay to promote. Prabhupada wanted everyone to write, but not to say, in the Bhagavatam, we have 4 verses were spoken to Brahma, then he spoke quite a bit more to Narada, and told Narada to teach it all over the universe, and he spoke much more. Then so many acharyas have written commentaries. It's all Bhagavatam. It's all just shining a light on making it clear for those who are bewildered, by all these things, so that they be capable of hearing and chanting. Okay, so the bell is ringing, and thank you very much. SriSriRadhaRasbihariTemple ki jai. Not so many people today. Is it? Okay.
I had 2 questions. So one is the Mayavadis, they say that the personalist, like we are sectarians and they are liberal, because I even met one Mayavadi yesterday. So he came. So like they are practicing their own philosophy, but they do visit others also. Like they do come to our temple also, but then we don't go to their ashrams. So what their argument is that that we are sectarians and they are liberal. And I've even been to one ashram. I saw one very nice painting of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and it was said that incarnation of bhakti. So my question is that they are saying we are sectarians and they are liberal. They allow, they are very open minded, and we are like, very sectarian about our philosophy.
We don't what? Yeah, because they don't have any real conclusion for anything. That they can just go on and on arguing. Basically, they like to argue. And you can't win. Like Vaisheshika Prabhu, one time when he came to Japan, he met some Buddhist Mayavadi. And the guy was, I can't remember what he was saying exactly. Everything is nothing or nothing is everything. So Vaisheshika defeated that position, everything is nothing. He said, no, you don't understand. Actually, I said nothing is everything. And because they just want to talk, They don't want to worship anyone or surrender to anything. So we don't want to hear there because it's so confusing. We don't need to get, we're already confused enough, Like I say, there's advertisement at the dentist. There's some fake teeth, and the company's called Illusion. And the advertisement says, no confusion, only illusion. But illusion means confusion. So it's very clever, advertisement. You read that and can't forget it, The people paying big money to become illusioned, to go to the Museum of Illusion or the illusionist, because they're in illusion already, and they think it's reality. So we have to give the reality, to give the light so they can see. The Srimad Bhagavatam has arisen in the eastern horizon, just like the sun, Puranarkos, to dissipate the dense darkness of Kali Yuga. And Gornitai also, Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Nityananda Sahodito, Gododaya Pushpanto, Chitro Samdo Tamonodo. They've arisen in the eastern horizon of Goda to dissipate the dense darkness of Kali Yuga. So chant Hare Krishna, worship Gornitai, read Srimad Bhagavatam, and turn on the lights so that people can find their way out of the dark room. If you're in a completely dark room, then you have to try to feel your way around, bumping into everything. You can't find the door. Like the assembly house of Yudhishthira that Mayadanava made. Duryodhana, it was such a place that you couldn't see if it was water or land or door or wall. Envious people would get confused. So Duryodhana fell in the water, and then he was very disturbed. So he went to try to go through the door, but there was a wall. And he fell down, and Bhima picked him up and said, "Excuse me, my dear king, but this is the wall. The door is over here." And that was what made him so angry. His envy just increased. So we need the light of the Bhagavatam. We need the light, and Srila Prabhupada is the torchbearer. He's shedding light on everything and defeating all the foolish ideas. Because the Mayavadi is all pervasive. The scientists are preaching Mayavadi. Everything is nothing. Everything comes from nothing. And Prabhupada's arguments are so simple. But other people can't see through it. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari.